Gather round, friends. It's time for Officials' Tales. Hosted by three retired sports referees that coaches throughout Northern Ohio knew as the Three Blind Mice. They are authors of the book called Officials' Tales. So let's meet the authors and your hosts, Jimmy Borgia, Rick Hall, and Don Nardecchia for today's edition of Officials' Tales. Now here's your host, Rick Hall.
Welcome everybody to Officials' Tales, the football preview episode number 1. Can't wait to get this thing started. Got a couple special guests, Mark Lane and Mark Hazelwood, to help us fill in the gaps for all the local teams and kind of know what expectations we're looking for the upcoming football season. But before we can get that going, I got to bring my other two stooges on. Nardo, number 1, how's it going, brother?
Hey, it's going great. Going great.
That's good to know. I'm glad everything's going good in South Carolina.
Yep.
I mean, after the rain.
Yeah. Well, and we got Jimmy back with us.
I know. Look at this. Look at that. Oh, God.
What
the hell? Jesus.
Look at the head on that thing.
And it's blurry as hell, too. Jeez.
Well, makes them look younger to the grandmothers.
That's what it is. Well, the two.
Here's about as big as the head you guys got. They're like this, and you can squish them.
And like I said, we've got two great guys coming on, Mark and Mark, or Daryl.
Yeah, there they are before they got into sports. There,
one of those guys. So let's bring them on. Hey, my soon-to-be neighbor, Mr. Lane, how you doing?
Good. You know,
my
it's
other
funny.
brother Daryl. And my other brother Daryl.
Funny how this works out, because we've got a couple of Marks with Mark and myself, and then one of my buddies at the radio station, Josh, and then we've got another Josh that also does the print media. So we like to team up, the Joshes against the Marks a lot of times.
Well, let's bring on the other Daryl / Mark, Mr. Hazelwood. How are you, sir?
I am doing well.
I like to hear that. So before we get started into the local football scene, Don actually sent me this. It was a very cool article about a young man that played or practiced for an entire hour with a viper, a venomous viper, in his football helmet. And here you can see on the screen an actual picture of the viper. Now this came from ESPN, right, Don?
Oh yeah. That was. In fact, I heard it on the sports news down here on television.
So, I mean, I've heard some pretty crazy crap in football over the years, but I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this. What about you guys?
You can look at the name of the town, Momel, so you know it's down in the bayou somewhere.
Yeah.
And they have all kinds of crawly, creepy, everything from the alligators to all kinds of venomous snakes and stuff. Anyway, what had happened is they took a break during practice, and they took their helmets off and cool down, and they went back to it then. And he looked in. That's when he'd seen it. But when they I think they called the police or something. It was only about 2 foot long. It identifies a cottonmouth, which is pretty venomous, so I did see a picture somewhere else that it was very small head, but it got trapped up between the padding at the top of his helmet, and the kid said that he could actually feel something. It was like something massaging or moving around up there. And but then the coach said, I tell these kids all the time, before you put your gear on, always check it out. And especially the helmet. You should be looking in there, make sure everything's still connected where it should be. And he probably would have seen this thing. But just in reference to cottonmouth, about 4 years ago, in the back of our development here, we had to clean out an old retention pond that never had to retain much. And so trees grew up in there, and there were big arborvitaes around it. And so it was kind of blind to all of it. We just saw the trees. Well, the state came through and said, hey, you got to clear this out. This won't work for a retention pond. Well, never had to. But so there was a lot of digging and moving earth and pulling trees and stuff from out there. And there was a pretty good sized snake that we saw up at our end. This is in the back end. We're relatively to the front. But my neighbor across the street had his son who does a lot of landscaping on the side. And he was working out back for his dad. And all of a sudden he saw this huge snake. So he went and got a big shovel that he had and snuck up behind it and tried to get it right behind the head, go down through it. And it didn't go through. And he got up, how you see kids stand on a shovel and jump. He was doing that. And it took him a number of jumps before it cut all the way through the head, where it had to be about that big around behind it. I mean,
Damn.
This was an old buzzard that was living the good life in the back there along the creek. And so this was a little guy that was probably hatched out early this spring and had gotten to that size, but just crazy. Hey, he's lucky that there was probably nothing he could grab to bite unless he had gotten all the way down to the ear. But
right.
Yeah,
that's some crazy stuff, right, guys?
Nothing you had to worry about down the Dust Bowl there behind the bleachers at Winnie Field, huh?
No, thank you.
Yep.
All right, so let's get started talking about the local teams now. These guys are experts in that field. They soon will be in the next couple of weeks for sure. So let's just kick it off. Let's Don, you got some questions for the guys?
Well, yeah, it's the same old group in the Firelands, although Mark Lane picked up on some information. Maybe Mark Hazelwood knows that. But let's attack the Firelands Conference first, and then we'll talk about the new Northern Ohio Conference and explain a little bit more if people still aren't sure how that's going to go. And I've got schedules for all the teams in front of me, and I've kind of picked out what looks like the game of the week later in the season, and a few rivalry games are being played early in the season that maybe have had a couple years off because of scheduling. But let's talk about the Firelands, one of the most stable leagues in the state. And I know St. Paul's had a scrimmage. Mark, I know you reported on it in the Reflector and the Register. So what's your take on the Flyers this year?
Well, first of all, you say stable league, and doing my Plymouth reporting yesterday and today, I can tell you it's been the same 8 since 1993.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like a long time when you say it, but in this day and age, 33 years, whatever it is, that is a long time. So that's the last time there was any change in membership was after the 93 football season or 94 school year. You can kind of, the FC more times than not, and you can say this about most leagues, but especially this conference, you can always kind of cut in half, right?
Yeah.
There just seems to be that divider line. And so, like, we know the four, right? It's Monroeville, St. Paul, Western Reserve, and Nashville and Crestview.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then every now and then one of that New London, South Central, Plymouth, Mapleton, one of them will cycle through and have a good year, win 5-6 games, sometimes even 7. But I mean, you go back to, probably Joe Lindenberger as quarterback in the late 80s at Monroe. It's kind of been that way, hasn't it?
Sure.
Like it just feels like it's been that way. Crestview was kind of new to it. Western has had its ups and downs, but really, for the most part, it's those four. I do not expect it to be any different at all this year. I would even suggest the gap might be, potentially even as wide as it's been. Although now I guess we have to say those four, and then there's only three. So
Right.
I do think that gap has even widened. But when you just do your typical, Monroeville's got the offensive player of the year back from last year in Colt Clark, and he's the quarterback. They've got, two other All-Ohioans, Alex Schaefer on the line. You got Cooper Cleary at linebacker, big kid, 6'1", 205, going to be a big bruising fullback, going to be the lead carry guy now after kind of sharing the backfield. So they have the most back at the most key spots. And if you believe in home field advantage in high school, I don't a ton, but I do when it comes to Marsh Field, for anybody who's obviously been there, and they're right on top of you, obviously. Literally on top of you. You can call plays with you if they want. So they have the most back at the key positions, and St. Paul goes to Monroeville, Western goes to Monroeville, and I believe Crestview goes to Monroeville. So put them in the one on paper going into it, although they have a very challenging non-league, and obviously health's imperative for anybody.
Right.
And then, Western Reserve's in an interesting spot because, he's losing all. It's not that he's losing a lot, like the number, but Coach Stevenson is losing a lot in terms of just, Hayden Keith was a 3-year starter. All his receivers were 2 or 3 year starters. He loses 4 offensive linemen. One of them started 3 years. 3 of them started 2 years. Another one 2.5. So these are guys who have been starting for multiple, years.
Mm-hmm.
So, but at the same time, I say that, and he's bringing back a running back who ran for 1,300 yards and 26 touchdowns. Pretty good starting point, pretty good starting point to have back. Yeah, and you got an all-conference. The one lineman who is back, Austin Kolb, was all-conference. So let him kind of clear you a path, right, and let the running back kind of do some work. So they're still going to be viable. And I think at St. Paul, it's kind of similar. You looked at them last year, and, a 5-5 regular season. They went 5-6 overall. The first losing season at St. Paul since John's rookie year, or John Livengood's rookie year, 1991. Right. And there's definitely like a collective chip on their shoulders, and they're in another interesting spot where, quarterback's gone, top running back / slot receiver is gone. But, at the same time, going to have a sophomore, Casey Freeze. He ran for, I think, 600 yards and 9 touchdowns last year in sharing the duties. And I remember I noted this. He was a freshman, a young freshman. Like, he was 14 for most of the year. And he's scoring touchdowns, not against your New London, South Central Mapletons, but he scored twice against Western. He scored twice against Crestview. He scored against Monroe. Mm-hmm. So those are some big boy carries at a very young age. And so he'll be back there as kind of a sophomore, a 2 sophomore backfield for them. He's got an All-Ohio middle linebacker, Raphael Gross, who Mark Lane knows is an All-Ohio wrestler as well. So they do have pieces. I just put them out of those 3 we've said so far more in that unknown category, just because he is going to be green at quarterback. Health is very imperative there, maybe more so than the other places. And like I said, they go to Western, they go to Monroeville. So that part of it, and then you're looking at, they open with going to Port Clinton, a D5 school. They're playing Northwood, a D5 school, and I can't officially say it, but they're likely playing Keystone in week 4, a Division 5 school in place of Plymouth. That's not done yet, but it's trending that way, I can comfortably say. So they're going to be challenged an awful lot early, and then they immediately go to Western Reserve after that stretch. So we'll see. And then just out of those 4, Crestview definitely lost the most. I would put them firmly 4th. I don't think they're quite in that top 3, but I do think I put them above your New London, South Central, Mapleton. New London, South Central are going to have great skilled kids, plain as day. especially at the quarterback position. Honestly, South Central Braden Byack, New London Jarrett Menzel. Jarrett Menzel's a 4-year starter. Now, of course, his first year he was playing 8-man football, but so that's an interesting thing too, especially with the 8-man raids going on. But their thing is going to be can their lines hold up and can their depth hold up, and
right.
Track record is what it is, and so they're definitely in that tier below, but they're definitely going to be able to score points. But can their defense get those Monroeville, St. Paul, and Westerns off the field and on a consistent basis? That's going to be tough. So,
yeah. Well, what do you think, Mark? What's your Mr. Lane? I got to get used to saying that, Mr.
Yes.
Lane. What's your take on that?
Well, I agree with Mark when you look at the Firelands Conference. He really hit spot on, and it's pretty much the same every year with your Western Reserve Rough Riders, Monroeville, Ashland, Crestview, and St. Paul up on the top, and then you got the rest. Of course, you've only got 3 this year with Plymouth going to the 8-man. But they dealt with that before when New London had 8-man football for quite a few years. Mark was talking about St. Paul, and they did have a little change in the coaching staff. With Eli Fisher and his dad going down to Willard. But at the same token, in-house, and the St. Paul coaching staff always has more St. Paul alums, that are willing to go with the staff. And so, a few changes there, but I don't look for that to affect them at all. And, it's like Mark said, when you've got a youngster 14 years old scoring a couple of touchdowns against the, some of the top teams in the league, you've got to like it. It makes you kind of think of back. I think it was Joe Stahl when he was a freshman playing defensively for the Flyers, ended up with 4 years of outstanding play, and that's going to assist him. Once again, the big thing, and we talked last night in our preview show on the radio with the guys from St. Paul, and one of the keys, they are never bigger on the line than their opponents, but they always work hard on their blocking techniques and speed. Those little linemen can sometimes outmaneuver those 300-pound linemen they're going up against.
Oh yeah. So Don, we want to move on to
and then like
oh, go ahead, Mark. Mr. Lane, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like Mark said, probably the odds on, looking at it on paper, you have to like Monroeville and Western Reserve,
right,
as a couple that, especially Monroeville, but you can't count out Crestview, which we never get to see a lot of, and of course the Flyers, they're always there.
Well, you never know either with injuries and weather.
Right.
Now you can carry
weather's the great equalizer. It always is.
And that St. Paul Monroeville game the last 2 years has literally been decided on the final snap, and it's week 10, as you guys know, every year. So you don't know who you're gonna that game 2 years ago at Monroeville was one of the best high school football games I've seen. But this is not towards anybody, but Monroeville lost, a couple players, one right before that game and one during that game that were very important players to them. So you're right. That's a key thing when you mention those teams that are in the race, and that Monroeville St. Paul game is 3 months from now.
Yeah.
The Firelands Conference race starts with week 4. And looking at my schedule and things that I noted, there's a feature game in the Firelands Conference from week 5 to week 10 with those 4 teams, and it's going to be very interesting. And I think that last game with St. Paul Monroeville is going to play a lot in who wins or who ties, because you just, with 4 teams capable, and the lay of the schedule, Western has a really, I think it's Western. They play St. Paul Monroeville back to back, and then you look at Crestview. They have St. Paul, Western, and Monroeville back to back to back, and so those, you're going to get bruised up, and you're, one game against. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I will tell you this, as somebody who talks to Coach Stevenson pretty frequently. No one's looking for it, because everything moves up a week except for that Week 10 game. You're locked into that Week 10 opponent in the FC, and every 2 years it moves up a week, right? No one's going to be more excited here in 2 years when he can finally break that cycle, and then I guess it would be St. Paul will go to the back, and then that means, however, that St. Paul will close Western Monroeville 2 years from now, because it cycles.
Okay. Right.
It cycles upward to the back. And so that means, so Western's going to get out of that brutal having them back to back. But then in a few years here, St. Paul will close Western Monroeville.
Yeah, well, this year he gets Monroeville after 3 tough independent games.
Yes, he does.
Macomb, Seneca East, Danville, all perennial playoff teams in Division 7. So that's his first 3 games. They go to Macomb, to Seneca East, then Danville makes the longer drive up to Monroeville Week 3.
Yep.
So, they're going to be bounced around pretty good in those first. Not to say that they'll give it as much as they have to take it, but
and they were
that could be a very interesting game.
And Monroeville was 1-2 last year after 3 games. Similar idea. And that game at Seneca East is they finally are coming to the field turf game as well. And so that's going to be Seneca East. Yes, that's going to be their first game on a new field turf. So they're going to be jazzed. Danville, since 2022, has gone at least, I want to say, 4 rounds deep in the playoffs. So,
yeah, they've always been very successful.
Yes.
That blue helmet with the Detroit Tiger type D on the side of it.
Correct.
You get to see that a lot during the playoffs. Not so much up here, but they see it more in the central and eastern areas of the state. So, yeah, that's a good start for Monroeville. That's going to have them ready.
Yep.
All right, guys. I'll tell you what. Why don't we take a short break here, and we'll go right to commercial, and then we'll come back with the Bay Area teams that could have a lot of impact on playoffs and stuff in our area. So hang on, stay with us. And here we are. Oh, I want to thank everybody for buying our products, our cups, our books. Even after a year or so being on the market, we do appreciate you. And if you haven't bought them yet, we do sell them still at Amazon, paperback, hardback, and ebook. And we also sell them at the Common Good.
Just wanted to talk about some of the products that we make. The tallow, the whipped tallow. We have some face, which is made with jojoba oil, which is really good and moisturizing. And then we also have the tallow lip balm and the body moisturizer as well.
And tallow's been good. We've had some customers have really good results at fading scars. So
and eczema.
Yeah. So those are both things that's been pretty popular lately. The other thing that's really popular is magnesium. And so we have a magnesium lotion, a magnesium spray, and currently, since we're always out of it because it's so popular, we have a body butter too. From one of our vendors, and I would show you that, but we are out at the moment. But the magnesium is magnesium chloride that calms your muscles. So, or calms your nerves, not your muscles. Well, a little bit of both. Yeah. But we've had customers have a lot of good luck helping with knee pain, neck pain, restless leg. People put it on their feet at night before they go to bed. I feel like any kind of chronic pain, if you're struggling to find something that will help, it's worth giving it a shot. It's not going to hurt you. It's not taking a pill. And we have those, the lotion and the spray are both refillable as well. So 2 things that can help, hopefully make you feel better.
Stop into the Common Good for our sizzling summer sale. 1 book, 13, 2 books, 25, and you get one of these free mugs, especially for Father's Day.
And if you pick up a book and read it, you can actually tell that some of these stories that are said from Don and Rick's version are not true.
I wonder why.
My version, I don't lie. My brother was a priest, so I got credibility.
All that means is he went to confession every time we wrote a story. Thanks for stopping by, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, and continue to support them. I know they have a couple, like a sidewalk sale and something else coming up in the next week or so, or maybe month. So let's bring the guys back. Hey, Don, I wonder why they're always out of body butter. I wonder why.
You see it, Jim going in there or what? And you know what?
Is that right, Don?
God overlooked Jim when it came to picking the priest in the family. Jim, the oldest.
God. Oh, Lord. Honey and body butter. I don't know why they're always out of that shit. I mean,
Hey, one thing real quick, though. Belated happy birthday to Allison. I saw that, and I thought, man, if we could have had that on that last show with Sarah and Angie, so I told them I put a happy birthday in there, and I told them, I said, boy, if we'd have known that, we had had that on the show, so we'll have it on this show. So happy belated birthday.
So yeah, hey Mark, if you need any lotion or honey, you better get there as soon as they get it in, because one of us is buying all that shit.
Yeah.
Imagine that. He might not have gone into the priesthood, but he does make a mean pasta sauce.
Yeah, he sure does. He sure does. I don't know. I got nothing. All right. Well,
that's what your wife said.
I'm trying to be nice here, Jimmy.
Well, so was I.
Trying to be nice.
You had to bring up the butter.
Hey, well, you were there. I don't know. She looked right at you while we were filming the thing. I don't know.
Right.
You're always out of the body butter, and she looked right at you. I don't know. I don't know what she was trying to tell me. All right. Well, let's pick it up where we left off here.
You aren't making pancakes with that stuff, are you, Jim?
No, I'm not a big pancake either.
What? Okay.
French toast.
French toast and a rotten egg. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on, boys. Don, let's start off with the Bay. How about we start there?
Yeah, let's start off with the Bay here. These schools all know each other. In the new Northern Ohio Conference, it starts the school year already started with some golf and tennis, and I think this next week may be soccer going, but we're talking football. Yeah. So we're looking at these 5 schools that will play for the championship of the Bay Division of the Northern Ohio Conference. That would be Bellevue, Edison, Huron, Port Clinton, and Vermilion, and they are the Bay. And let's go to Mark Lane, because you get over to see some of these schools every other year or so. So what's your first thought on seeing these 5 in a division?
Well, in recent years, it's been pretty competitive. I mean, for a while there, it was just Bellevue, Huron, and Edison, or Edison, I guess I should say, because they've been on top quite a bit. But in the last couple of years, Port Clinton has made a run on it, and Vermilion's, they used to be the doormat in that division, and they've played some really good football. But when you look at it this year, with what the teams have lost and what they're gaining, I think the favorite, and Mark Hazelwood would agree with me, I'm sure, would be the Bellevue Redmen, barring injuries and the fact that they've got Ike Brown at quarterback, and he's quite the athlete. Then after that, go ahead, Mark.
I would actually call Bellevue I don't want to say runaway favorite, but pretty close in my eyes. Go ahead, keep going.
Sorry. Yeah, they are different, and of course, their head coach who just came in to replace Ed Nasani is also from the South Central Trojans with the relationship with Ryan Teglovic. So that just keeps a gift that just keeps on giving and giving. But you look after that, and of course, the Huron Tigers. They're going to be looking, and Huron and Edison both are going to have new quarterbacks this year, and they lost a lot of athletes that they've got to replace. The Port Clinton Redskins, they've got a new coach, although he's not new. Coach Huntley was already there, so that transition is going to be minimal. But like I said, one of their key players was Malachi Pinkleton, and he was a force offensively and defensively. That's something that they're going to have to replace. And Vermilion, they're going to be competitive, but they're not quite up, and they lost quite a few seniors as well. You want to jump in on that, Mr. Hazelwood?
I'll just jump in and add. Bellevue will be Ike Brown at quarterback is something like 6'4", 185, and with the offense they run, he's the guy. He's going to be. He was the guy last year. He's more so going to be the guy this year. Caden Kramer will be his top receiver, and then on the other side of the ball, he runs the defense. I think he's going to be a 3 or 4 year starter at middle linebacker. That's a big name. And then Connor Dauk is another one. Like those three guys, you're going to hear their names all season. You couldn't have drawn up a better scenario if you're replacing an Ed Nasani to walk right in and go 8-4 or whatever it was, and beat arch nemesis Clyde in the playoffs when they finally met in the playoffs. That's a pretty good way to walk in the front door and kind of establish yourself.
It is.
So definitely I circle them number one with a bullet. And I think Edison and to a degree Huron are both going to be those teams that line you always hear of, we got to play Edison. Dangerous, right? Like, you're going to have to show up. Like, you might have the more talented team, whatever, but you're going to have to show up and actually defeat them over 4 quarters. Edison in particular is going to be very young, but they love the sophomore class that they have. So do I, for the record. Yeah. But they were not, I had mentioned Western earlier with a lot of 2-3 year starters. That's Edison's situation. They're graduating some names that Mark Lane and I have been either typing or calling for 3, sometimes 4 years. So it's not so much the amount of kids they're replacing. It's you're replacing guys who you just wrote their name down. There was no quarterback competition. There was no fullback competition. You know what I'm saying? Like, those guys were just set. And now you've got a lot of sophomores and juniors where he is having to have that competition in camp. Jim Hall, he actually said it was kind of refreshing in a way. The practice has been a lot more active in that regard because these kids want to play. They're fighting for time, whereas he's been on a stretch here where he just penciled names in and everybody else just kind of fell behind. So Bellevue for sure. I put Edison next, and then I put probably Huron just below that. Although I would agree with Mark Lane in this sense of Fort Clinton's another one where there was a lot of years there where you did just kind of, okay, but you're going to have to, they have enough athletes in key spots to where I don't think the drop off is off a cliff type deal. Like, they're still going to be solid. Now Vermilion lost a very talented senior class. They have good like sized athletes as far as like who they have back, but they are replacing quite a bit. The Coons kid, among others, like
Oh yeah.
the, the they might, at least in that initial going, have a harder time to find their footing than a Port Clinton or a Huron would.
So do we have any interesting matchups in this conference, Don, coming up?
Well, we talked about the big three. Both marks did. Bellevue probably the favorite, and Edison and Huron. That's going to be a big game. So as I look down the season schedule, they get to week 6, and now in the Northern Ohio Conference, there are 5 teams in each division. So there are 4 league games. So you lose one, and you're fighting to get back, maybe for a tie. So the games to look at: week 6, Edison goes to Bellevue. Week 7, Bellevue hosts Huron. Those are the big 3, with Bellevue playing both of the other 2. And then week 10, and this may determine second place, the way we're looking, but it could also have a bearing on first place. Edison at Huron. So those are the big in the league battle. A couple of things that I noticed: that Huron is opening up with Oak Harbor. So they're renewing a rivalry from back in the Sandusky Bay Conference days, the original, or I shouldn't say the original, but the Sandusky Bay Conference previous to this last version of it. And also Port Clinton and Oak Harbor are going to play week 3. And that was always, that before Oak Harbor got in the Sandusky Bay Conference, that was always a head knocker, always a third week game. Different leagues go weeks 1 and 2, 3 to play each other, and Port Clinton and Oak Harbor was always a head knocker of a football game. So Bellevue plays Shelby week 3. There's a couple of old Northern Ohio League teams in there. Yes. So that and Vermilion week 3 plays Clearview, and that may not mean a lot here, but Vermilion and Clearview, those school districts adjoin north-south. And that's another one of those backyard rivalries that Clearview always performs well. If Vermilion's lost a lot of talented kids, this could be a chance for Clearview to run all over them. But Vermilion, they're going to learn early on who's ready to go once they start playing for the league. So that's what it looks like in the Northern Ohio Conference Bay Division.
Two things on my end. One, it is worth noting Bellevue does have to play Perkins the week before Edison. So just throw that out there. Granted, they're both at home, but nonetheless, you're going to be coming off of absolutely. You're coming off a tough matchup. You're going to pick it up right away. Yep. So, and just number 2, since I know we like to tell stories on this podcast, you mentioned Huron and Oak Harbor. My quote unquote rookie year of sports writing, 2002. And I'm doing part-time stuff for the Lorain Morning Journal. And they sent me across the bridge to Huron at Oak Harbor. And Huron's quarterback was Stephen West. And his uncle would be Jim West, Jim's Pizza Box fame. Mm-hmm. So I went over the bridge and covered Huron at Oak Harbor 2002. It was early, probably week 4 or 5. 52-51, 4 overtimes. Oak Harbor won because Tony Legs went for 2. He goes, I wanted to go home. So he went for 2 in the win and didn't get it in the 4th overtime. And none of my copy made the newspaper the next day.
Missed the deadline.
I had no shot. And and again, this is like the 4th or 5th game I've ever done. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Like I'm in Oak Harbor. I'm so far from home. Nothing. I just spent all this time. None of it's going to see the light of day. Am I going to get paid? I drove all this way, but that's one of those games that it's just like seared in your memory. So
yeah, sure.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Yeah, those are our favorite games. Is the overtime games, right, guys?
Yeah,
awesome. Those are our favorite.
A couple of beauties, yeah.
They're our favorites.
And I don't want to get too off the rails, but yours truly for both newspapers, Norwalk. So I covered the 6 overtime game, Margaretta Huron, down the street here at Norwalk High School. That was me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but we're not going. I don't want to talk about that. I'm stressed
Yeah, I
talking about
know.
it. So
That still
go
haunts
ahead.
you, right?
Yeah, it does. We can turn the page now.
All right. So let's move on to the lake, which is the
Yes.
big boys as we're talking here. So who wants to tackle the Lake Division first? Which Mark? You go right ahead. You just go ahead and attack the Lake Division.
I'll let Lane Stadium go. Yeah. Yep. Let Lane Stadium start.
All right, Lane.
And then Mark can fill in the blanks. No, you look and we've been talking about it, but by far, just like Bellevue has to be the heavy favorite in the Bay Division, the Perkins Pirates, they keep reloading, and they should be the big school as far as the Lake Division goes. And of course, you look at the other teams in there, and Tiff and Columbian always is competitive, and you can never count out Clyde. And then there's the battle between Norwalk and Sandusky as to who's going to fill up the fourth slot.
Oh yeah.
All fair.
Look at the teams. Well,
go
go ahead, Mark.
No, I mean that's all fair. I mean that's just kind of, I put Clyde in that similar fashion, and maybe even to a degree Columbian. You're gonna strap up and play them. You might have the more talented team. But I looked at Clyde. Clyde last year was what they were 4-7, but I think they had 2 or 3 losses against some really good teams. Where if it flips the other way, they're 7-4. Bellevue twice, in fact. Both those Bellevue games were up in the air, and all of a sudden, you're 6-5 instead of 4-7. So they're a team like that. Columbian's kind of been that way. Now they have a new coach. Judd Lutz went to somewhere random. North Royalton.
Oh.
He was a Tiffin Columbian guy, played for Steve Gilbert, was great at Mount Union, and was having success at his alma mater, but he took a job at North Royalton. So they have a new football coach, and you just don't know what you're getting necessarily with them, especially early in the season as they try and navigate that. I can't speak to Sandusky. I know, like we said, the Ship kid went to Perkins, so obviously that was going to be their best player. They had a tough year last year, and Norwalk. I mean, they're going to battle the numbers game, fellas. Yeah. Again, here for second or third year in a row. I had them at, I think they had 30. I think they had 34 in uniform at their scrimmage. I think there's 36 on the roster. And, I look at their schedule, and we mentioned, they get Toledo start right out of the gate. You have to win that game. I hate to put pressure on you like that, but you have to win that game. Because then you're going to go down to Ontario after that. Now, Madison, at Mansfield-Madison, winnable game, but you have to show up, play. But then it's just it's Bellevue, it's Edison, Perkins, Columbia, they play a Vermilion and a Sandusky, but you do remember we touched on that in the Firelands. What's your health going to be when those games roll around? And that's going to be Norwalk's biggest issue. I think it's wise that they've gone to the full blown old school wing tee, try and chew up some shorten the game, and they got a lot of 2-way players. Of course, it's the right call. I just worry about where they're going to be health-wise when they get to what I would call their true really winnable games. I do worry about that for them. I do.
Yeah, the meat of the schedule. That's what chews you up usually.
But with Perkins, with Perkins, they're a program obviously, and we've had a few of these we've already talked about. But they're going to be favorites to win their league, and that's great. But they have their eyes on November, right? And what's interesting is you look at what Shelby graduated, obviously, a Mr. Football finalist and Air Force commit, and some other kids. Now they have some kids back. They're still going to be good. They're not going to be last year's Shelby. Nobody there would even tell you that.
Right.
But the elephant not in the room is, where does Ted Ginn Sr. fall? They have not been assigned a region. They have not been assigned a division because, as we were talking off the air, the Cleveland-Collinwood closure, Cleveland Public Schools redistricting. And as much as everybody in this room would like to say, well, they took in Collinwood, so they're going to move up. Well, don't be so sure about that. There's a reason Collinwood closed. What's the reason a school closes? No kids.
Kids.
No kids.
So don't assume that the bump is going to be enough to push them up to divisions 3 or 2. They could still be in 4, and then all of a sudden there's your true roadblock, right? But
Yep.
Not to say that Perkins has a clear path to winning a regional title if Glenville's not there. I'm not saying that, but it's hard not to think that way, or at least keep your eye on that. So they have to be assigned a region by like September 11th, I think.
Mhm.
So,
Well, speaking of that, Don, what are the key matchups in that conference coming up?
Well, again, I looked at those three, the big three that we had. In week 6, Clyde is at Perkins. So that's going to be a big one there. And then the other two are the last 2 weeks of the season. Week number 9, Tiffin is at Clyde. And week number 10, Perkins is at Tiffin. So those should be pretty interesting. I did note here, Tiffin Columbian with their new coach, he's got a real meat grinder. 3 of his first 4 games. Tiffin and Fremont, Ross and Columbian is a big rivalry. So they come out with a new coach and they play Ross right out of the chute. And then they go from there down to Mansfield to play the Tigers. So that's going to be a big one for them. If there's a breather in there anywhere, and I don't know what's going on down at Ontario as far as numbers or, if they've got good classes coming. But Ontario is week 3, but then week 4, they play host to Lima Senior. And I know from Lima Senior, they're going to get nothing but speed athletes playing in that game. So, they're probably looking a little bit of every kind of offense that you can see, but they're going to be well tested. And then after that, they go to Huron, who's not. I've seen a couple Huron Tiffin games, and Huron doesn't, wave the white flag or anything. They'll play them head up. Then they get into the season, the championship part of the season, where they're playing teams in their division. So that's those 3 games. Like I said, both those 5-team divisions, you could just about take it down to 3 important games. Could Norwalk upset them? They had somebody on the run pretty well, but then just couldn't finish it last year. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah. And they lost to them by 3 at home.
Yeah. And Sandusky, if they've got the speed that Sandusky usually has, if you get a couple of breakaway touchdowns, and you always are concerned about that with a team that has a lot of speed and a guy that can get it out there to them. And that can keep them in any game. But the other part of Sandusky is all those kids are going to want to play defensively and swarm to the ball, or it just depends what the defensive matchup are. So I think, like you said, it's Perkins to win, and it's going to take a Herculean effort. Like I said, somebody loses before they play Perkins, they're cooked. And if Tiffin stays clean, that last game is going to be a beauty.
Well, I know for me personally, I'm looking forward to football. High school, college, pro. This is the season, and but there's nothing like Friday night under the lights. Any of us who have played it or officiated it, there's just nothing like it. And I just hope that everybody in the area stays as healthy as they can. Hopefully this weather changes around here. It figures out what the hell it wants to do, and if it wants to be fall, if it wants to be summer, I don't know what the hell's going on up here. But I just hope that everybody has a great season. And I know we, as a group, wish everybody the best of luck. That that it is a good competitive season, and every game's exciting, or as exciting as it can be. Like we talked about, some of these teams are just lucky to have teams. So, Mark,
we talked before, but we didn't come right out and say it. I know Mark Lane told us before the show started, and Mark Hazelwood alluded to it, but it appears pretty obvious, I guess, that they are that it's Plymouth this time that is looks like they're headed to 8-man football this year. I don't know that anything has officially been published, but I guess they probably told the kids about it or what. Where are we at?
It is official. So let me backtrack really quick. I should say, sorry, Ryan Otney is the new Tiffin Columbian coach who was on Judd Lutz's staff the entire time. And you said the schedule made me think of it. Ryan Otney played for Derek Kidwell at Fremont Ross.
Okay.
So they play, like, he's a Fremont Ross guy, so good pedigree there, all that stuff. Anyway,
so he knows about it.
Yes, correct. So shameless plug, you can read about the Plymouth situation at the Norwalk Reflector, both online and in print. It is official. The ink is wet. And so just running it down a couple things. Western Reserve will play Brookside. South Central and Black River will reunite, old FC opponents. That's not until week 10. And then, like I said, I can't quite put that St. Paul Keystone is done, but it seems pretty likely. You guys should know this, actually. You know what's holding it up is game officials.
Oh, yeah.
They were both supposed to play two different opponents. So once that gets figured out, that'll probably be finalized. So between Oberlin and Plymouth, 3 of those schools from each league are really got lucky if you think about it. But like Monroeville's probably not so lucky because Clearview had been the match that week. They already found somebody else before this Plymouth thing happened. But going back to the Plymouth situation, they played a full running clock game against Western Reserve in week 9 last year. They had 14 people in uniform, and there were no kickoffs. It was running clock from start to finish. And that was one of the things they had maintained. You know, they had 21 kids sign up, but when it came time to strap it up August 1st, they were only getting a consistent 13, 14 kids to show up. And the one thing they had told themselves was they were not going to do that again with the constant running clock. And they weren't going to put themselves and the other schools through it. They still thought as late as last weekend that they were going to at least attempt to start, because Lucas has been a good matchup for them in all sports. Plymouth Lucas, they get Lucas first, and then Willard just down the road week 2. I know they really wanted to at least try and play those games, and word kind of came out after Monday's practice that just collectively between kids and like senior kids, some of them they had 5 seniors. This isn't. It just isn't gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like it's to no one's to no one's fault of their, like, it's just like they said, they all kind of, the seniors went in there and met with their coaches. It's just like, this just isn't.
I mean,
so what can we do? And then they had the stroke of luck, somebody else's misfortune. Cardinal Stritch had opted out of 8-man football altogether at the end of July. So Plymouth had been doing their own research and was armed with that information. So Monday, they called that Northern 8 conference, and it took 47 minutes for Plymouth to go from 11-man to 8-man to in a league and having a 9-week schedule.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's blessed right there, boy.
Right? Like, I mean, that's so. Do they now? I will say here, there's 2 distinct differences that come to mind, because I've had this question a lot, and when I asked Josh Calamay, who's their athletic director, this question, he didn't want to answer, and I respected it. Is this a 1-year thing, or is this a long-term thing? Now, you guys mentioned New London. New London was 8-man from 21 to 23. They did 3 years of 8-man, came back in 24, and are now. I think they have 35 kids on their roster this year. So, healthy number. But what New London had going for it was they already knew they had a very large 7th grade class at the time that is now like juniors and sophomores, and they knew they were getting a new football stadium.
Yep.
Like those are two built-in, and they had lineage in there, right? Thomas kids, Mitchell kids, like
there you go.
like right, like New London names that we've all, like Mark Lane and I have been typing or writing for decades. And so like they had that going for them, and they had the idea of a new football stadium going for them. And Plymouth don't have either of those things. And you just look at, hey, St. Mary Central Catholic has found their footing in 8-man. You know, when they made that decision in 2019, and they haven't looked back. They haven't tried to come back. They've stayed right where they are, and obviously they're having success with it. So, you know, the whole 8-man statewide thing conversation's probably for a whole nother podcast. But as of this moment at us recording it, do I think Plymouth will be back as a Firelands Conference football member? I kind of don't. I don't think it'll be soon. I don't think this is a blip. I think this will be several years if they do decide. I really do. Because I've seen, just talking to coaches, and junior high numbers weren't much better. They didn't have 20s, you know, like it was single digits again, I think, in the 8th grade. So
yeah,
I don't think this is a 1-year situation.
Yeah, that's a telltale sign. If you don't have that feeder system,
right,
it's over. So what do you think, Mr. Lane?
Hey, before anything else, I want to point out that, you know, we are so blessed to have Mark covering the area sports here. I like to call him a true wordsmith. And I mean, amazing articles going back to the great multiple article he did on Newt Rockney perfecting the forward pass at Cedar Point. But where I'm going at is today at noon at Norwalk City Hall, Mark was recognized with a proclamation from the mayor on Norwalk for having over 100 awards in his, 20 years or so of writing.
20 years.
And I got the pictures. You texted me right before we went on the air, and congrats. It's well due.
That's a great honor to get.
Now that I've got that out of the way,
and
I have to say that I'm like,
oh, did we freeze? No, there he's back. I don't know.
Yeah, that's, you know, if anybody is watching this because of the 3 clowns across the top of your screen here, Mark has been following high school sports, all sports, for say 20 plus years, 30. You know, anyway, he is on top of things in our area, and he writes his stories go in the Norwalk Reflector. They also go in the Sandusky Register. And, you know, his game reports, his game stories are excellent. His human interest stories about the young people and the coaches that play in our area are just so spot on. He you know, he looks for the, not necessarily the great player, but the player that's overcome a lot of problems to be good or to play even again. Just great human interest stories. And, you know, we're lucky that he's willing to come on with us, but you know, he's a great sports writer. And, if, you know, you don't miss seeing his byline and his stories in the Reflector. And Mark Lane has been around sports since he was probably about 3.5 years old and could toss a high school kid in a wrestling move.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he's been around the high school sports. He really worked his tail off to get to a lot of games when he was still working for the railroad. But hey, he's retired now.
So, soon to be my neighbor.
Yeah, you can hear Mark on different. How many streams is WLKR and the affiliates they're doing on Friday nights? They got stuff on more than one.
They do 3 games on Friday nights now.
Okay. WLKR Classic.
On Classic. And then we do one on 95.3 WLKR. And then Randy Horde and I are on K96.
Okay, so you get all around for games. You're not sitting like either at Whitney Field or the closest spot. You and Randy move around a lot, but but the good restaurants.
I actually had to finagle. I had to finagle the schedule last year in 24. I actually talked him into letting Randy and I do the Norwalk game on the night that they had the 50th anniversary of the 74 state championship.
The monsoon.
Because otherwise I could have been anywhere. Yes.
Who knows?
Yeah, well, we want to remind people that hear this before Saturday night that there's a great event out at at Whitney Field starting at 4:00 on Saturday, and it's a scrimmage volleyball between St. Paul and Norwalk High, and they're going to start with the 7th graders. The 8th graders both going to have one set. Then the JV team will go, and then the varsity teams. It's at Whitney Field. On the football field, they're going to set up a volleyball court. Both football teams are helping with moving plywood and getting it in place, and it's going to be right near the sideline at the 50-yard line. So there's going to be plenty of good seats considering where it is, but it's going to be a fun evening. They've got raffles, and they do these things. There's a fundraiser that the 50-50 is going to go out to the fundraiser for the Rosbert boy and his cancer fight. And so I don't know if they've procured. They were working on a way to get people from Whitney Field to Contractors Park, just down Old Route 18 there, Akron Road, trying to get people back and forth during the night between the two places because they're having a big fundraiser out there at St. Paul's Contractors Park.
What weather permitting?
Right? Contractors Field at Contractor Stadium.
Yeah, and if it does rain,
and then it's Contractors Park out there where they've got the baseball, softball, and lower level football fields out there. So,
and if it does rain, they are going to move it to Norwalk High. I just talked to Angie today, and they're a little concerned about the rain maybe Saturday night. So
I saw something about 25, 35%.
Just keep that in mind, folks.
They'll make the call early. It'll be on school stuff, and I think they'll let the radio station know. And but it's a great time to live in Norwalk.
Yes.
And I'll be home in the middle of September to see some football and go down and check in on Andy Freeze at Ohio Northern.
There you go. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully you guys have a great season of covering high school football. Hopefully there's some good games. It's not all one-sided, but that's what we do, right? And
support those kids. We've talked to you about who we think is going to be the best, but that doesn't mean don't go support your local kids. They like to see people in the seats, get a little fun going at the ball game, and just don't miss out on it.
I know, right? And we used to do that too. Hey, you know what? Our thing was the first guy that said the word overtime had to buy the first round. Just so you know,
that was for us. It was the first flag.
No overtime. So thanks again, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Now that we have them out, I got one little thing for Max. We got to keep with the football theme, and we'll get the heck out of here. Here we go.
An old soccer player.
What can you say about that?
Taking the header.
Oh, well. But hey, that was great. And we're going to try to get this out as quick as possible because I know we got some scrimmages coming up. And we want to get people excited about football in our area. And like Don said, go out and support your local team, even if your kids aren't playing. So, you guys have anything before we close?
Nope, that's it.
All right, guys.
Well, we've got a couple of good shows that we're working on here as we get started in the football season. So keep watching, and we'll keep having some good sports talk for you.
All right. We'll see you soon. God bless.
God bless.
That's all, folks.